When people would bring back you like a 6-pack of it because they were in Pennsylvania, it was like hen's teeth, right? It was gold. It was amazing. And then you get it every day. I remember the first week I was like, I'll take a Yingling, sir. And then I just had High Life again every time after that.
I prefer actual hen's teeth, sir.
I'm glad you didn't let that slide. I was waiting.
Wait.
I think Joe is like one of those, like, you know, like the word of the day calendars. It's like,
No, hen's
saying
teeth is
that-
all time.
Okay.
Like hen's teeth is an expression which is hard to find.
I'm not telling you it's not an expression.
Very well
but it's
What was,
not
what was
a
his
common
other one? The weep of the chap or something like that?
wheat
from
from
the
the chaff. From the chaff. Also, very well known expression.
By who?
Does nobody read here? Does anybody
Anybody read the paper?
I can't believe my friends is I hate all of you so much.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Abbott Elementary. Abbott Elementary has gone 2 seasons with 35 episodes on ABC. They were talking about episode 1, which is called Pilot, originally airing December 7th, 2021. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, most of the boys, Nick, Joe, Ferg, no Gordo this week. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Yo.
Look at Mel Gibson, still thriving.
That's the one you went with?
Well, I could have also gone with Random Man Child Pants, which is actually really funny, but I just kind of want to bring back up that we all just kind of, not we, but like society was just like, Mel Gibson gets a pass for a bit, which is fucking insane. Because you ever heard the like 40-minute Mel Gibson rant?
Anti-Semitism is really not that big a deal, apparently.
Yeah,
So,
it's
hold on,
wild.
it's a weird way to start an episode.
Yeah.
Yo.
Nick, don't isolate that clip.
Yeah.
But it's that there's racism involved. I will say though, aside from all of that, my favorite part of that whole argument he has with his wife is he's so wildly crazy, so racist, so anti-Semitic. You're like, this is abysmal. And then he goes, oh, and also, by the way, I saw you yesterday. That green thing you were wearing, a little much. Which I think is the best part of the whole thing. Because he's being so fucking insane and then he has to take like a weird little dig at her dress. Like, what the fuck's happening, Mel Gibson?
All right, so
every time she retorts, he just goes, "What? What?" That's my favorite part about it.
Okay, so very weird way to start this episode. Abbott Elementary, very big show over the last 2 years. Kind of came out of nowhere and became like this super mega hit.
Never heard of it.
That's the thing I think is crazy because when
I've never heard of it.
we talked about doing this episode, yeah, and I think me and Joe were the only two of the 5 of us, obviously no Gordo this week, but out of the 5 that have even heard of the show, and I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, I've been watching since episode 1. It was a mid-season replacement. We watched it like the next day on Hulu. We were like, oh, people said this was really good. And I've watched every episode. It's one of the few shows that I was like, fuck, the strike is going to stop this from being one of the fall shows. Because I was really excited for it.
It's just weird to me because, like, Ferg, and Nick, you watch a good amount, but Ferg especially, you've watched all the TV. Like, you... Like, so to not even be aware of the show's existence is like just so weird to me because it really does. This show has a very big fan base.
I think it's just going to be an ABC thing. Like, I feel like, I don't know, what else is on ABC that we would know? Like, do we know anything on ABC?
This is no offense to ABC or CBS, but if it wasn't for Hulu, we probably wouldn't know most of the things because they've always been like kind of dead networks. Like NBC sort of took over.
This is on HBO Max as well. That's how I watched it today.
Nowadays, it's
nice.
really tricky because so many shows are on other streamers and stuff. And if I remember correctly reading, I believe Abbott Elementary, despite being on ABC, I think Hulu is how the show became popular. Because
That's how I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, so many people were watching. They must have,
That makes sense, at least.
they must have advertised it to be like on your front screens and stuff and got a lot of views that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's really how more people catch stuff. So few watch television live anymore. So the network kind of is irrelevant. It's where else can you view it?
Right.
I mean, unless it's sports or something at this point, like, not much is worth watching live, right? Like, we all pay extra money for a lot of these channels to watch without commercials. So I'd much rather watch the next day at my leisure, like having dinner, than watch it live and be like, oh, I peed and I missed a joke. Like, I'm pissed off now and I want to restart it tomorrow.
Yeah, like you only want to save like dedicated live television for important things like debates and stuff.
Look, okay, you can make a joke. I'm hoping some listeners here actually appreciate that some people care about the geopolitical world out there right now.
Okay, but I don't understand what caring about the geopolitical world and then watching a debate have to do with each other, because they're almost completely exclusive from each other.
I just want to clue in people listening live. Right before we recorded, we're just kind of going over recording schedules and stuff, and Joe's made it very clear that we have to work our recording schedule around the presidential debates so he doesn't miss anything live.
Do you know how funny the debates are? You know how much fun they are? You know how fun I get to yell at the TV? I turn to like Bill Burr when the fucking debates are on. I just scream at the TV. My wife just leaves the room. I usually get to make something fun like meatloaf. It is a night that I enjoy every time.
Oh, it's a special meatloaf
How
night?
often does your wife have to leave the room when you're watching anything?
If it's Maine Cabin Masters, we're usually good. Anything else, it's a 50-50.
Meatloaf and debate night, guys. It's a real fucking barn
That's
burner.
as bad
up in
as
Maine.
Gordo's lasagna night.
No, because when I make meatloaf,
It's also very
it is,
quirky of you, Joe.
I made meatloaf for tonight. I'm going to watch the presidential debate and enjoy my meatloaf.
see, I don't see that working. It's not like I say I do it every Monday like Gordo.
Just 'cause
Occasionally
you
I
don't
make meatloaf.
think it works doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Well, I didn't say I make meatloaf every debate. If I was going to do something like that, I would do something that was alliteration heavy. I'd be like donut debate or something.
I do want to sneak this in real quick because sometimes I question if Gordo's where Gordo's not in this episode, and I don't think he's going to be part of the editing process for this one. I don't know if he's going to listen back. He'll pretend he did. So since
He'll lie and say he listened to it. He'll also lie and say he watched the episode.
So I would like to sneak this into the episode right now to catch if he even listens or not. Fuck you, Gordo. We all know you're lying about eating lasagna every Monday, you big piece of shit.
Not only do you not do it now, you never did it.
Yeah.
No. I believe he did it once.
Yeah, I'll give you once he's done it. Yes.
I believe once they were like, it's a Monday, let's make lasagna because of Garfield. And that was the one time it ever happened.
And then the two other times we forced him to do it.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, we did force him to do it a couple times.
And he sent us like an 8-part mini-series of videos through our group chat of him going to Whole Foods and buying pre-made lasagna.
Also, Gordo, the chef, buying pre-made lasagna.
I may have given him the benefit of the doubt if the very next week after telling us that story, he wasn't doing it. And we shamed him into going out and buying
After the
lasagna.
conversation we had, you would have thought he would want to go out of his way to put it in our face. You know, to be like, look at this. See?
Yeah, you would think that. Yep.
I will say, if it was real and it really happened, we'd be able to see him expanding throughout the weeks because lasagna is a carby, calorie-heavy meal. You eat a whole lasagna every Monday, it's going to catch up with you.
He would just sign on for the podcast, and he'd just be like green, like droopy eyes, like greasy.
No, I've known Gordo for 35 years. He doesn't have the ability to put on weight. He can have all the lasagna he wants.
That's true. He does have kind
It's
of an
not
iron
fair.
stomach.
It's not fair at all.
You're right, and it isn't fair.
It's like going to the movies or like a sporting event, like a live sporting event back when we were younger. Gordo, by the way, which like you can't really tell for anybody who doesn't know Gordo personally. Gordo is like 5'2", like 120 pounds. Like he's a very small man, but he would put down 10 pounds of nachos and 3 hot dogs at a
so
movie
much food.
theater.
And that's why he reviews bathrooms.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oddly, his second favorite thing to do after eating is talking about where he finishes that process.
But to cycle back to Abbott Elementary, so obviously, Ferg, Nick, you didn't even know the show existed, so I assume up until today you had never watched an episode.
Nope, not even close.
And Joe, you're completely caught up?
Yes.
And this was a first for me. I was aware of the show, but I've never watched it up until we recorded this one. So for the most part, going in with fresh eyes.
But a show that we do have a recurring actor in, we've covered before.
True.
Yes, actually. We'll talk about that when he comes up, because I was
surprised
shocked.
the shit out of me.
Yeah, I was
I didn't do
surprised.
any kind of research before I watched. And it took me a minute. I was like,
I know who. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to it in a little bit.
What's wild about that too is I remember that show being so long ago when I looked up how old that guy was. Where it's like he's 30. It was like we are getting so old.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
It was
I feel
because I
like-
don't think he's done a single thing since.
He did The Walking
So there was
Dead.
there. Yeah, that's true. But like, he was on it for like 2 episodes. His like, you get Everybody Hates Chris in syndication, or when it was on, and then in syndication, and then you jump 15, 20 years, and then you see him again, and it's really strange.
Right, because like we saw him as a little kid, and then we see him as like a grown
An adult, yeah.
But like, there's not a lot in between, you know.
That's the thing. You saw him as a kid on Everybody Hates Chris, but then he was on The Walking Dead. He was like, was he a teenager?
He was like middling there. It was
Yeah,
it was,
and
like,
now he's like a full-grown adult. So you've seen like each stage of his life. I can't wait to watch him old.
Well, we will talk about that in a few, so I want to get into the actual episode itself and just kind of get going here. To start off, though, the main character, Janine, I guess I should just mention here, with Abbott Elementary, Quinta Brunson, who plays Janine, the main character, she's the creator of this show.
You know,
So-
the one
Oh,
time
really?
I got fun facts, you fucking spoil it.
Wait, your fun fact was that
And
she was
it's
the
not-
creator of
Yeah,
the
it's
show.
not like a fun. It's pretty known.
It's fun,
I
yeah, but
guess.
she started it and stuff too. She's
Yeah.
the star and produced and wrote it.
And from what I understand, wasn't really intended to be a main character. From what I read on this, now again, I'm aware of the show and I know there's a big fandom, so I'm sorry if I'm incorrect with any specific details. But really, when this show was written, it's kind of like loosely based or with the idea in mind behind her mother, who was a teacher in the system for like 30 plus years. The character of, was it Barbara's character?
Barbara, yeah.
Yeah, Barbara's character is kind of based on her mother, and that was kind of the intent, to have her be the main character of the show. But I think the network itself kind of wanted her to be a little bit more in the limelight, which is interesting.
Yes, and the school is named after her 6th grade teacher.
I did see that.
I have one left.
So you got one in. but yeah,
you did
no,
it, buddy. You did it.
I think it's, knowing the characters now and how they fleshed out, I think that it makes a lot more sense to have a Janine type be the main focal point over the Barbara, because Barbara's very like stoic and like a positive character, but not too character driven in an ensemble cast. You know what I mean? So I think you needed some more liveliness out of your main.
It's also the opposites too, right? Like, she's young and like a go-getter, and she has all these ambitions and maybe unattainable ambitions and goals for being a teacher, and then she has the sort of person who's been there the whole time who can like ground her to be like, look, it's not that way. It's great to be so, but you're kind of foolhardy here.
Right. So now, all right, so to get into the actual episode, which I said before and then didn't do, we get to the classroom. It starts right in the middle of a class. You see Janine's character. She's teaching, what is it like? It's like first grade or something like that. They're young.
Yeah, I think she's first grade because Barbara's kindergarten, and the other teacher Melissa is second grade.
Okay. She's going over like little projects these kids are doing where they have to list their favorite movie and character from it. And the first one's favorite movie is Toy Story, and favorite character being Woody. And then the next one, the next kid's was American Gangster. And she's like, all right, I have to just have another talk with your mother again about what you're watching at home.
I love that. Has anybody seen American Gangster?
I've
never seen it in full.
think I did.
I've seen it in parts on TV, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's for sure, I would guess 1,000% without even checking, on Tubi right now. Like, if that movie's not on Tubi right now, I will send each of you $7 through PayPal or Venmo.
To be or not to be, that is the joke.
To watch a movie with way too many Frank Thomas commercials, or not to watch it. And also, she's a second grade teacher. I forgot. She mentions it, which is her little. First
Okay,
interview.
all right. Another important thing about the show is that it is mockumentary style. Like, I know this became, I feel like it dulled down, right? The Office happened, and then you start seeing a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Parks
then-
and Rec and things
and then-
following from
Brooklyn
it.
Yeah, not as
Nine-Nine.
much.
What we do
but,
in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
but this show definitely follows that format. I would say though, when I looked at it visually, the way it was set up, it is mockumentary, but kind of gave me more of the like Modern Family type mockumentary vibe, like that style. Like, it looks a little too clean to be true documentary looking.
Also,
What I like about this, though, in Modern Family, though, so I love The Office, right? I love they do the confessional thing, like the real world thing, where you go into a room to tell people. But this makes more sense to me as a workplace comedy, where, like, they just do them when you catch them, right? Like, so it's never in the same place. Or they look at the camera and say things. I kind of like the, like, real, sort of like cinema verite of it.
It's usually they're just going to pull a teacher into the hallway.
I do like that it's acknowledged too. Like they make reference to the camera crew and say why they're there in the episode.
Yeah, it was like brief, but it was enough to just give you okay, now I get it.
Yeah, because like we all love The Office, and it took 9 seasons for them to even turn the camera around and be like, we've been filming a show for fucking a decade. You're like, we all knew that, but like you could have mentioned it at any point.
In all fairness, in The Office, that almost killed the show because everyone hates those episodes.
Well,
No, not all of those episodes. We just don't like the guy who needed the doors
You like
that
the
go like
stupid
this
sound guy?
in Silicon Valley fighting for him. And I hate that. I'm saying that's the only part of that season that's not good. Also, Jim being a shithead in that season sucks, but everything else is good.
Well, eventually we'll talk about The Office. I feel like we're trying to find that perfect.
It's gonna be a
moment to talk about
4-hour episode.
I know.
Yeah, the episode of The Office is going to be a behemoth that I do not want to do.
And to avoid this becoming a 4-hour episode and to continue on, this is when we get that first talking head from her. We're kind of seeing like a little bit of clicking back and forth between, classroom stuff and her talking head. And this is where we're getting a lot of the information. That's where we find out that she's a 2nd grade teacher. We find out that this takes place in Philadelphia and a lot of this stuff. I'm trying to think of any other show off the top of my head. What else was a Philly show? Was Boy Meets World Philly?
Oh, wait, it might have been.
I'm trying to think of like how many Philadelphia shows I can think of off the top of my head. I feel like
It's Always
not...
Sunny.
Oh, that obviously, yeah. It's
That's
funny
an easy
'cause I
one,
blanked
right?
out on that one.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is kind of a little bit of Philly.
I guess it starts in Philadelphia in the
It's not
theme
in
song.
West Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
Boy Meets World, The Goldbergs. I have a list up.
Oh, yeah, The
pulling
Goldbergs
those up.
is Philadelphia.
Yeah, Boy Meets World was Philadelphia. All right, so I guess it is more represented in television than I thought off the top of my head. I'm like, oh, you don't.
I
get
will
a
say
lot
though,
of Philly.
but Boy Meets World is always, and even the Goldbergs are always like the suburbs. This is like the city. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different.
Also, WrestleMania.
The next WrestleMania, if you're listening to this within the first year of release, then yes, next WrestleMania will be in 40. I don't think we'll be covering WrestleMania 40 on this show though.
But I imagine 2 of you will be there.
I would say that
Yeah.
is very possible. Yes.
I've been to a lot of parts of Pennsylvania, but oddly never Philadelphia.
I've been to Philly a nice handful of times actually. It's our sister city to Boston.
That's true. One time we drove up to Moosic, Pennsylvania to buy Yingling beer before you could buy Yingling beer in Boston. We did like a 6-hour, 6 a.m. drive to buy Yingling in Iron City and there's one more
Straub's.
Pennsylvania beer, Straub's. And drove back home with cases of it. And the people at the beer store were like, you drove 6 hours for this shitty beer? We're like, yes, we did, sir. Thank you. Load the car up.
We had Yingling for the first time on our baseball road trip, and I remember building up in my head that this beer tasted like cake. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then it got released in Boston. I'm like, ugh. It's not terrible, but it wasn't what I remembered.
It's just
from
beer, yeah.
the
When it was magical, when people would bring back you like a 6-pack of it because they were in Pennsylvania, it was like hen's teeth, right? It was gold. It was amazing. And then you get it every day. I remember the first week I was like, I'll take a Yingling, sir. And then I just had High Life again every time after that.
I prefer actual hen's teeth. So.
I'm glad you didn't let that slide. I was waiting.
Wait.
I think Joe is like one of those like like the word of the day calendars. It's like
No, hen's
saying
teeth is
that-
all time.
Okay.
Like hen's teeth is an expression which is hard to find.
I'm not telling you it's not an expression,
Very well known.
but it's
What was,
not
what
a
was his
common
other one? The weep of the chap or something like that?
Wheat
from
from
the
the chaff. From the chaff. Also, very well known expression.
By who?
Does nobody read here? Is everybody
Anybody read the paper?
I can't believe my friends is I hate all of you so much.
Anyways, they're part of this talking head too. She's talking about kind of the school system out there and that a lot of money is not given to these public schools and how the city claims it doesn't have any money, but then takes note to like the multi-million-dollar renovations that are happening to the Eagles Stadium. And you get that kind of quick shot of all the work being done over there. I mean, we do see a lot of that, I guess, in real life where
I appreciate the call out.
it happens because a lot of these sports teams strong on the cities now to like pay for these big billion-dollar
Yeah, it's
like
true.
locations,
Which is
for their
fucked
display.
up.
Okay, yes, schools should get money and lots of money. But these stadiums bring in a lot of business and money to the city, so I can understand
Look,
I
it.
understand.
I see both sides of it, but think of school.
I think the main problem is the juxtaposition because of the drastic difference. It's
Right.
not just like, oh, this school could use a little more. It's like, no, this school is in despair and you're sending money elsewhere instead. So I get that.
You know what the
more, I
solution
think.
is? You have a politician. The sports team has to donate X amount to local schools.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that would work. But I also want to say the problem we have, too, the other way around, we had this when we were in school, which was over 20 years ago now, so everybody, fuck, holy shit.
It wasn't over 20
They cut
years.
arts programs, they cut music, they cut arts, they cut all this for sports, too, right? That's always been a huge thing in schools, and that still happens to this day, so I think that's a problem as well. I think if a team is going to donate a bunch of money to a school, they also have to earmark some of it for non-sports, because it would always be like, oh, remember like we took that class that was like America and film last year, part 1? I really want to take that part 2 next year. They're like, oh no, we can't, but they painted the bleachers at the football field, and you were like, well, I don't give a shit about that.
Well, if you actually
Maybe-
remember when we were in high school, this like strongly is like flagged in my brain. I remember they sent all the students down to the auditorium, and our principal spoke to us because they threatened to cut some of the sports teams, like football and hockey, whatever it was. And in our town, that's like a big thing. And he basically said, like, flat out, hey, listen, like, we need money. And the reality is, if we threaten to cut sports, the town is going to rally and raise money to save football. And if we say, hey, we have to cut 3 science teachers, they're not going to do anything.
Right.
So
It's fucked
and
up.
And I kind of like, first off, I was like, wow. First off, he's right. Second, kudos to him to being so real with his students.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
honest
Like,
as shit there.
This is the real situation, and this is how we basically get your parents to give us money. He was like so correct in that.
Not my
Yeah.
parents. I don't know if I want to go on that.
Yeah.
My parents were not going to give money to the football team. I appreciate that.
I just think it's one of those, to go back a little bit when we talk about this, with cities spending all that money on sports franchises and having the taxpayers pay for stadiums and arenas, when there's billion-dollar owners, like Mark Cuban has been very upfront about it. He's like, no, I'm never going to ask the city to build a new facility because it's my team and I have
good for
money.
Cubes.
Like, he's like, I'm a billionaire. I don't need money from the people to build
Yeah.
this.
This
I
is why
have it.
billionaires buy sports teams, because they have the
Right.
money to run and finance a sports team in a giant building.
It's not fair to Mark Cuban, but I can never take him serious again after, like, there's that Shark Tank video that somebody edited together. It's just him screaming at a little kid, and with it's just really
I know
funny.
exactly what you're talking about. It's hilarious.
I love Shark Tank, and there's
Shut
like
up, you're a crook.
there's like 15 episodes where people try to mess with him, like funnily, where they're like, hey, we gave everybody this thing we do. It's got teams. And instead of giving him like the Mavericks he owns, they'll always give him the like opposite team, and he freaks the fuck out. And he's like, just because you think you're funny, you think I'd laugh at this? I pass. And they're like, whoa! Just like, what are you doing? It's a comedy show, right? So I don't know. That dude seems like he's a little high on his horse too. But also, Mark Cubes, if you want to sponsor this podcast, I will take all of your money and I will support your basketball team.
I have pride in what I do, but I am for sale. I liked also, there's a cutaway during this part where they show in one of the other classrooms, and one of the other teachers is like just trying to settle her students down. She's just like screaming for everyone to sit down. Like she's completely freaking out. I think that was like one of the older, we see her later on. She's like, this teacher's having like a meltdown.
Yeah, she's having a real rough go of it. And we've all had those teachers. We had a teacher when we were sophomores maybe, or we were juniors maybe. I don't know. But we weren't freshmen, but we were maybe juniors, right? And it was like first year teacher. We were sitting next to a friend of ours, and you know, you're 17 and you're a shithead or whatever, right? So he tried to throw something and hit the chalkboard behind me to like get me to stop talking, but he sucked at throwing, so it hit me in the head. And I just turned with like the Grinch smile of like and looked at him, and he was like immediately aware at 22 years old. He was like, well, I can never tell this dude what to do ever again because I just assaulted him. And like we had that like mental communication where I was like, you will leave me alone and you will not fail me, and I will not tell anybody that you just threw something at my face. And it was just like, I think back on that now too, as being like, we had friends who were older than some of our teachers in high school. You know what I mean? Like, we were hanging out with people who were older than us, and like they'd come in like these authority figures, be like, I don't think so, bud. This isn't gonna work for me.
Yeah, especially our senior year when like the new crop came in. They were all like a couple years difference from us.
Yeah.
That's got to be hard, being like a 22-year-old teacher and coming in trying to teach like 18-year-olds, but like, oh, there's just it's not enough of a gulf there, you know.
Yeah.
This talking head, I feel like she does lay out a good amount of like the scene for us to kind of know what we're getting into. I think when you're using the mockumentary style, it's such a great tool to be able to just, instead of having to write whole scenes to explain things, you can literally just have someone sit there and go, blah, 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 blah. This is our situation.
Oh, yeah.
And just like, we
It's
move
perfect.
on. It's like such a nice kind of cheat code when you're doing this.
Well, yeah, I mean,
form of
aside from the
shows.
fact that you can make it really funny too, like there's a reason it worked and was so popular and successful. I think it's probably for that reason.
And it's also a way to not cheat at exposition. Like, you can tell things and move the story forward, and nobody feels like they're forcing it into a storyline like you would in like a standard sitcom.
I will say one thing about this episode, and we're going to obviously cover a lot more as we go along, because we're just now about to hit like the intro to the show. There were not many jokes in this show.
Okay, I didn't want to tip my cap, but I was gonna ask Joe when this gets funny.
I thought it was funny the whole time, honestly. I don't think it's jokey, but I think it's funny, and it's portrayal.
My first laugh comes at the janitor scene, so that shows you.
Oh, the
how
janitor is
funny
the
I
best
thought it was.
character.
I do feel like, and this is one of those, again, we're only looking at episode 1, and we're just kind of rating it based on what we're seeing right now, and I just felt like watching this whole episode, there's very little, like, jokes, and I know that it's mockumentary style, and it's not meant to be, like, standard sitcom type slapsticky jokes, but it just seemed like the humor was subtle at all times. It was very, very few moments that are, like, intentionally meant to make you laugh.
It was like Rutherford Falls funny.
I think there's a lot of
I
funny
disagree.
here.
Rutherford Falls, I don't think was funny.
I like Rutherford Falls.
And you like
Joe likes
I can't
everything.
remember, but
And go back if you want to listen to that, by the way. Rutherford Falls is a show that we covered in the past. Actually, I should mention, by the way, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to all our episodes. Everywhere you can follow us on social media. Instagram, X as it's now called, for probably the next few years until he sells it back to someone who turns it back to Twitter. And, you know, hit us up on those, S1E1 pod on social media. Hit us up. But yeah,
I will say the one thing I think is a really funny joke here is when they're doing this little scene before the intro starts, Quinta Brunson is showing the book, and she was like, we've had 3 presidents since this one, so I had to tape them in.
yeah.
My sister is a teacher in a very small community. She texted me like 2 weeks ago, and they have a book, and the most recent book in their library says, our new president, and it's George H.W. Bush, which means that book is from 1988. And she was making a pile of books to like donate or get rid of or whatever. And she was just like, do you want this book? I was like, yes, I do. Of course I do. But like, so even worse than this, because George W. Bush was president until 2004. So this is 18 years old at my sister's school. 1988 is the most recent presidential book.
Yeah.
That rang so weirdly true.
Your sister who wasn't even alive in 1988.
Right, yeah. And she's a teacher now, and she's like, our new president, who was the vice president in 1980. Like, it's fucking wild that some of these schools, it's just like, again, underfunding of schools, right?
So now the intro to the show is very brief. Just like quick bit of music plays, and you basically just see the front of the school and a bunch of kids walking towards it, and then one of the kids' backpacks happens to have the logo of the show on it. Pretty simple, I think effective. It's fine. Kind of new style.
Not my thing.
I mean, I get
Depends
it,
on
but
the show,
a
but
show like this, what kind of intro would you give it? You know, like I don't think you could have like a whole like do 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 do
You
do.
give it one similar to Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
I
but
would-
that's just the same thing
I-
but longer.
Yeah,
I would
one
like an
long
80s
one.
one, though, that was like, she went to college, do-do-do. Now she's got her first dream job, do-do-do. She's a teacher at Abbott, do-do. Ella, do-do. Menta, do-do. Like, that's what I want for every show.
Yes,
See? Fergery.
green light.
Guys, that was the easiest episode we've recorded. I'm very excited that we can go to bed now.
We get back into the classroom after the intro, and we have Janine putting like the rug away because I guess the rug that was in her classroom where kids sit for like story time and stuff has gotten to a point where there's just too much pee on it now that it has to be thrown away. It's no longer cleanable.
This is where I find an issue with her being second grade teacher, because kids aren't peeing on stuff and peeing themselves in second grade.
I mean, I'll say that my niece just started second grade this week, actually.
Jesus
And
Christ.
yeah.
And she pissed herself last
Stop making
night.
me feel old.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I don't think she's. Yeah, I don't think those kids are quite at pee themselves levels. That's where we are here. So.
Yeah, but they also show a kid just peeing on the rug. It's not a
Yeah,
kid peeing
I was gonna bring
himself.
that up.
Yeah, it's a kid just like she walks into the room and he's turned out, dick out, peeing on the rug.
Well, that doesn't happen either.
Well, no. See, normally I would say yes, but when asked why he did it, he was afraid of the toilets, and that does come into play. But I would say that kid would be smart enough to pee in the toilet and just not flush it.
Just go younger.
That's the
It's
move.
that easy.
There's a
Or
big
pee in the sink.
There's a thing with this rug. The rug is like the kind of one of the storylines that takes us through this whole episode, the importance of having the rug. And she's saying here how important it is because it's like a calming space for the kids. She says it's like Xanax for kids is like laying on the rug, which I don't know. I don't have like these. Of course, it's tough to think back to when we were that age, but I don't think that was like this prominent thing about being in elementary school that we all get to sit on the floor.
You know what I try
the
to go
rug.
by? I try to go by Billy Madison and his teachers each thing. And in second grade, he had that old lady teacher and was doing spelling bees.
I was just thinking of all the times I took Xanax in my life and how fun it was and how I probably could have peed myself. So I feel like I understand where this is coming from.
Sitting on the rug is like the Miss Lippy days, which is what, first grade / kindergarten.
I think kindergarten, or it was junior year and 9/11 just happened.
And this is when Barbara walks in. Barbara being the teacher I said that's kind of based on her mother, her real, like Quinta Brunson's mother, like real life mother. Barbara walks in and she's asking her to turn the music down because while this is all going on, Baby Shark is just blaring through the classroom. She says it's like Back That Ass Up for kids.
It's true.
I appreciated a reference to a song from 20 years ago, but also like, yep.
Kind of funny actually, as I say it out loud, there's two, it's like this for kids joke back to back, like within seconds of each other.
Yeah, Xanax and juvenile, which are two weird things to push together.
And we get that kind
Is
of
that the first we ever got Lil Wayne in our lives? I feel like it must have been.
Yeah, he did like the back piece of that song.
Yeah.
And I believe that was like, because he was part of like the Cash Money Millionaires. And that was probably the first single that he was exposed to like mainstream on. He might have
That
had
was a
releases
huge
that-
song.
Yeah, huge. And he was like 17 when that came out. If that. But anyways, I digress. We get the talking head from Barbara, and she's kind of talking about herself. She says she's a woman of God. She gets her nails done every week, and that she loves teaching. Again, very stoic, she's like, we even get to it later when Janine says that she kind of like looks at her like her mom, and I don't know if that's just a play because she's based on her real life mom, but
I think calls her mom.
yeah, she's kind of the elder teacher there. She's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to like Janine and a couple of the other teachers who are younger, who like Janine, I think says she's only been at the school, this is her second year there. So, and then you have like the veteran who's been around for a while.
When she uses her like forceful, angry voice, if you shut your eyes, she sounds just like George Jefferson's wife.
Wheezy?
Yeah.
I can see that. Get the lead out, Wheezy! Wait, also, how have we not done The Jeffersons? One of the greatest shows of all time.
It's coming.
It's coming.
They'll all come. That's one of those, because of, I don't know, the format of our show and how we want to kind of just make sure that we intermingle more popular, lesser known shows, all different eras. There's all these shows that we just think we would have done by now, and I don't know, just think someone else is going to pick or something's in, then they don't happen.
We need to do a month that is The Jeffersons into Amen, into 227, into Sister Sister. And then we can do a Sherman Helmsley into Jack Gay mega month.
I don't want to get too much on a tangent. Wasn't The Jeffersons a spinoff?
Of All in the Family, yeah.
Right. So we would have to do All in the Family first. Okay.
Yeah, which I know we're
Also,
holding off on doing
how are we
that.
not? That's another
Again,
one.
yeah, again.
Yeah, All in the Family, another like amazing show, yeah.
And to go back again, we see Barbara here, like, these kids are going crazy in Janine's class, but Barbara is able to get them to stop talking instantly, even though Janine can't do it. And again, that's just that veteran presence, that's that comfortability, that's that I've been here and the kids can sense your vibe. It's just like with animals, right? They know when you're afraid of them. So you have this teacher come in who's just kind of a take no nonsense. And when Janine's asking her, like, where are your students? Like, oh, they're lined up in the hallway, single file. And we cut outside and we just see them all just standing there, like, patiently waiting.
It's a thing like teachers have too, right? Like we've had it in jobs and things too, right? Where like you don't mess with this certain boss, or like they talk and you just kind of like do what they do. But especially as kids, like I remember having some teachers who were like, "This teacher's fun," and then other teachers who were like, "Don't mess with that teacher," right? Especially as like a little
school
kid.
teacher, yeah.
Yeah, scary like middle school or elementary school teachers where you like don't know your place in the world yet, and this person is an authority figure is very troubling. Or they just give Jay months of detention that for no reason at all, but love the rest of us.
Jason.
I know we've discussed this in the past, but I'm sure we have a lot of new listeners since it's come up. When we were in elementary school, we were all in the same class in 4th grade.
Don't pretend you weren't a piece of shit before you
don't pretend that you guys weren't also pieces of shit.
We
That
were.
is the
What did
thing.
we do?
Not in 4th grade and 1st grade.
So in
We were
4th
lovable
grade,
pieces of shit, though.
our last year of elementary school, which is your last year of having recess, the majority of my school year, I was not allowed to participate in recess for the dastardly task of forgetting my memo book.
What again?
That
it
was
was
what-
a culmination of things.
That was the straw that broke the
yeah.
camel's back. It wasn't just you did this
What
one
was
thing
I
on day
doing
one.
that was so bad?
I think
when
it was
look
what you
back
were
at it?
not doing, which was your homework ever, because she was making you look for your book that was supposed to say, "Oh, here's what I have to do," and you never filled it out, and you never did your homework.
Which I think, as of last week's episode, we were talking about just this in our back to school month here, where you're talking about how you always got in trouble because you never did your homework, but were good at tests.
I got out.
You also didn't do your Iron Giant. Made your mom do it for you.
Incorrect.
And then she told that
These
teacher.
are all
And then
details that
your
are
mom-
incorrect.
Your mom
Your
ratted
mom
you
threw
out.
you under the bus big time.
No, so again, if we'll talk about this real quick. So same year, we're in the same classroom, all of us are together. We had an Iron Giant project where we had to make, based on the book, we had to make our own Iron Giants and bring them into school. Did my mom help? Like I'm sure any of your parents helped you do yours? Sure. Did I do the majority of the work? Of course I did. Because like that was a fun project to do. My mom comes in, has to bring it in because it's a bigger one. It's not one that you could just carry on your own. It had to, be driven in. And like makes an offhanded joke about doing like all the work. And then my teacher legit holds it against me and like basically fails me on the project when I did most of the work on that.
It's funny. It's actually kind of not funny. But looking back, like she had like true disdain for Jay.
Yeah.
And like, how old are you in 4th grade? You're what? Like
we're 9 years old.
9?
Yeah.
Like she like genuinely did not like a 9-year-old.
She
Like,
loved all of
at
us,
all.
though. She's still my favorite teacher I've ever had.
Yeah.
But also Gordo, who's not here today, Gordo singled her out in the foreword of his book, where I was like, Gordo, you're mad about your teacher from 4th grade so much that you wrote about her in the foreword of your book. Like, so she caused quite the issue with Jay and Gordo.
No, but there was a point like later in life where I remember like, I don't know if it was any of you or someone else, but like we had gone on, we were out of high school and like I have a job. I think I'm in management where I worked at the time. Not that it was like anything like, it was like a middle management at a supermarket, but we're like 19 at the time. And like, she outwardly said to one of you then, like, I never thought Jay would like succeed in life. And it's like, I was 9 years old. Like,
If it makes you feel any better, you have a teacher who lives, I don't know if she still does, but lives across the street from you, who told me I never thought you would, and I know you still won't, when I was like 19 years old,
She
to my
sucks.
face, and I was like, God damn, that's rough.
don't you feel like at that point, not to say that she was correct or incorrect, I'm just saying that's at least someone who's like an adult at that point of their life.
Talking to another adult where I was like, you held a grudge for some reason.
But when you're like 9 years old, you know what I mean? I just, again, like my niece is 7. Like, I just can't imagine even in a couple of years being like, this is who she is for her life now, and just assume like whatever.
Well, we just talked about George
I could
H.W.
totally
Bush.
hate a
I
kid.
remember vividly in 1st grade, because we were in the same class, that our teacher had a thing up about the election coming up and who was going to be president. And you wrote your name on the thing on the board, or you wrote who you wanted to be president. You wrote like Clinton, and she flipped out because nobody was to write on it. She's going to like do like hash marks of like who did it and do like a political conversation. So you got yelled at when we were like 7 for doing something by a teacher that I can vividly remember. It's like one of the only like that age memories I have.
Yeah, a lot of teachers don't like me. So, anyways, like I said,
it must be them.
I would.
We shouldn't have done back to school month.
Yeah, which I don't even think I mentioned at the top of this episode. This is back to school month. If you guys listen week to week, you already know that. But this is week 3 of back to school month. We figured for the month of September, let's try something a little different to a theme month. We typically, since year 1, have always done that with Halloween in October, but we thought maybe let's try something different. So we're kind of doing all classroom related shows for the month of September this year to try something different. And if you guys like that, again, hit us up on social media. Let us know if that's something you want us to do more of in the future with other months.
And we're also open to suggestions for themes for months.
Yeah, but by all means, it actually would probably help us make picks because it gives us a little more structure. So to cycle all the way back to this, when they're all in the hallway together and you have Barbara and Janine talking, you also have that exchange where Janine mentions that she's been emailing Barbara and she never gets back to her. She's like, oh, they must be going to my spam. He's like, oh, it's so weird that that happens with you, but not with anyone else. And she's saying that in a way that doesn't even come off as accusatory. It was legit. It's just he wants to believe that she's not ignoring her. So
yeah, she's actually questioning it.
She's trying to believe this obvious lie just in hopes that Barbara doesn't hate her.
This is I think a good, you mentioned earlier where the laughs in the show. I think a big part of this too is building up the relationships for later laughs as well. There are some good callbacks in this, and I think their relationship, makes some laughs later on that maybe aren't as funny at the beginning.
That is a risk for a pilot, because that can put a bad taste in your mouth. And you might not go back to a show that could be awesome in the future.
I mean, without giving my hand away, when we watched this the first time, I didn't like this pilot very much.
So you better cancel it by history.
Well, anyways, we'll find that out later in the episode. We meet Jacob next, and I don't quite know how to completely describe his character. I mean, he's having an interaction with Janine in the hallway. I mean, how would you peg this character? How would you explain him? He's one of the other newer teachers. So
he's just kind of the ditzy, aloof guy.
I feel like he's supposed to be a little neurotic, but he doesn't play that way enough. Yeah.
But also I think he's the guy who's super liberal, super trying to prove that he's not a racist or anything by being in a predominantly black school and getting his foot in his mouth sometimes by trying to be an ally too much.
He was nervous because she asks about going to the corner store for cheesesteaks for lunch, and that particular store, I guess, always calls him white boy, and he doesn't want to go there.
Oh man, I'd get so fat living in Philly.
I mean, we live in an area where you can get subs.
You can get a cheesesteak. Yeah.
I know, but that's what they're known for.
Yeah, but we're known for chowder. How often do you have chowder?
I have chowder plenty of the time.
I love clam chowder, but I wouldn't say I would say just we assume they're eating that every day.
I almost got chowder the other day from Nick's.
It's too hot for that right now.
That's why I didn't do it. It was 80 degrees.
Yeah.
But I wanted it.
Well, then
I suffered through a hot coffee this morning. You can do it.
I stand corrected. If Ferg lived in Philly, I guess he would be cheesesteaking all the time then.
I would. Me and your brother.
Although I'm not a big cheese whiz guy on the thing, versus the standard steak and cheese that we do up here.
I'd rather just have a Northeastern steak and cheese sub, personally.
I haven't had a Philly cheesesteak, but I know you've tried all the main ones when you've gone. Which is your favorite?
So I've only done a few. So there's the classic.
Is it Geno's and Pat's? Or those
Geno's and Pat's are the historic two that are side by side that everyone talks about, right? And I think anyone who lives in Philadelphia will be the first to tell you that is not where you go to get a cheesesteak.
Sure.
But that, as tourists, is the must stop. So again, Ferg, myself, we'll in a half a year from now or so, we're going to find ourselves in that area.
Yep.
I would say it's a 99% chance that we'll go there at some point that week and go to both.
We can each get one and then split.
So what happens, they're not as filling as you think. When I went last time, the group I was with, we all ate at one and then went to the other and all ate a second sandwich at the other one. It's very doable.
Cheesesteak is so heavy. It's a lot of cheese in your gut.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
Want me to get the bubble guts?
It's not as big as the subs that we're getting up here, if you're buying a large sub.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so and other than that, I only went to Tony Luke's. I haven't toured the world doing cheesesteak. So I'll tell you, Pat's and Geno's are both fine for what they are, but neither are anything that special. They're just kind of institutions. Out of the two, I preferred Pat's at the time. I'll Hope that doesn't cause any controversy. I've tried them both. They were both fine.
I think it's similar in Buffalo with the wings too, right? Like there's like 2 different restaurants.
There's like Anchor and something like,
Yeah.
I've wanted to do that for a while. I'm going to have to find a reason to go up to Buffalo at some point.
Is Buffalo also where the Juicy Lucy is from too?
No, that's,
There's
that's like Midwest.
Midwest. There's 2 restaurants who claim they made that too.
Yeah.
Which also I think is the most amazing food of all time, the Juicy
That might be
Lucy.
in like,
Is that the burger with the cheese inside?
Yes, it is.
yeah, that might be like Milwaukee. Not or
That sounds
or
maybe.
Minneapolis, maybe Minneapolis.
Maybe, yeah. I think it might be Minneapolis.
I remember the episode of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Every restaurant claimed to be the inventor.
Yep.
that he
Yeah,
went
it's
to, and it
it's
was like-
Minneapolis.
I think Man vs. Food did one too. Yeah. The thing you have to be careful though with those is that the thing you don't think about, and I learned this the hard way, is that cheese inside that burger is like molten
lava.
hot.
Liquid hot
So if you
magma.
don't cut the burger in half and then take a bite out of it, it doesn't matter how good the
Magma.
burger is the rest of it because you have no taste buds anymore. Magma.
I feel like we're kind of getting a lot of rapid fire meeting the characters at this point, but it doesn't feel rushed because each one's kind of getting a little bit of highlight time. And again, I think the
talking
mockumentary
heads.
style,
I just say the
yeah, it
talking
helps.
heads makes that work.
Right.
Yeah, it makes it work. So
You
it's
literally
not
have
just
a
being bombarded.
one-on-one discussion with the characters.
Because we're getting Melissa next, and there's a nice little. They're cluing her in on the white boy situation, kind of how she feels about it. And like, basically, Janine was kind of saying that it was almost like a term of endearment when they say it to her, and Melissa's like, "No, that'd be like if it was Zach Ertz," which I love the Zach Ertz reference because he's a tight end for he was in Philly at the time. He's no longer there.
I literally had no idea what she was saying and kept Googling names like Zach Gertz or Zach Bertz and trying to figure out who it was because I know that little of football. So I'm glad that you know who it was because like I feel bad that I don't get this reference.
He just happened to be a tight end that I was a big fan of. So it was like, so I was excited to hear him called out. But yeah, that's the thing that we've talked about in shows before. Little references like that.
I think he's in
And-
Arizona now.
Yeah, so The Office was always good about little Scranton callbacks, but like things most people wouldn't get because most people don't live in Scranton. But like, so they're trying to do that here and inject these little things in here, mention cheesesteaks, mention the Eagles. But to mention a specific player like that, that's not a Hall of Famer type of player, like that does kind of date the episode even a couple years later.
Yeah.
Unless you know nothing about football, then you're just like, who's that dude?
Yeah.
They should have just done what The Office did and named someone Zach Ertz.
She could have just said Rocky at that point. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
know, and people
And
would
that's all they have.
And they show her class, and she's teaching them like, but she's doing the whole $100 is a C note, what's half of 100, and they play her up as this like, I don't want to keep mentioning The Office, but she's kind of like the Meredith in a way. She's very like rough around the edges.
Oh, I don't see that at all.
You don't see that at all.
No, this one is much more competent and much more
Yeah,
like
she's
Meredith.
not
They
like
play
she's not a train wreck by any means, and she definitely plays into this like I'm Italian thing. Because even in her talking head, she's like just talking to the interviewer, like you Sicilian, Italian, like she's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because
the
she's
most-
thirsty.
The best thing ever is that she's like, I'm going to make a ziti at one point in this episode where
I'm
it's
gonna
like,
have to bake
oh,
a
God,
ziti. Yeah.
it's so relatable for
Yeah.
all of us. Yeah.
And right here is where we meet the principal, Ava. And again, we're getting everyone one at a time right here, but there's not too many characters, so I don't think it's too overwhelming because I kind of feel like she's the last important person you meet. She's very much, I mean, she's the one who invited the camera crew in for this show, like we find out, and definitely wants the attention from it, and is treating this as like her starring in a reality show. So she definitely looks to camera a lot. Very, I don't want to say eccentric, but like, how would you best describe
like,
Ava?
She's like a clone of from last week, in AP Bio. What's her name? You know, the 3 girls that he teaches with?
Yeah.
Oh, the three
Like,
teachers.
she sounds and acts just like her.
I didn't
Yeah.
get that. I mean, there's something, I don't know. I can't quite place what
These
she's
people
reminding
may
me of.
not be comparable. You know what I mean? They might just be like their own unique characters.
Well,
I mean,
no,
we're
for
trying
sure.
to, like-
I mean, I'm not saying that everything is. I'm not saying that they're rip-offs of other characters. I'm saying that
No,
like
I was
there
just
are
saying
times
she
when
was
they-
similar
yeah.
because they're both sassy.
And that's the perfect word. She's like sassy and super self-confident and I guess the kind of person who thinks of themselves as like an Instagram influencer, but maybe really isn't. Does that make sense? You know, People who like
Yeah.
post all that stuff where they're like, look at my whatever I did. Everyone's really into it, but they are not that person, you know?
And again, there's this, she's the reason that there's this camera crew here. She's the principal of the school, but is like, this is my chance to star in a reality show. And she very much treats it like that.
Like, I feel like we all know people who watched those sort of shows like Real Housewives or whatever, who were like, I could be that person, and then sort of adopt attractive, trying to find a way into it.
She's asking all of them.
My problem is that they say it's a news story that they're covering for stuff like that. And doing a whole series, how long could this story be? It's not like, they don't say it's like a documentary like in The Office or some of the other mockumentaries we've covered.
Right.
So how long could a news story be going on that we can get multiple seasons of this show?
Yeah, I mean, it probably morphs into something other than a news story. I don't know how they'll play it.
It just becomes one of those things they just kind of stop talking about.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
assume, you know?
You address it and you walk away from it.
Yep.
Like, for example, they mentioned in Modern Family, the documentary, and then I don't think it's ever mentioned again throughout the entire show.
I think just the
Office-
pilot, yeah.
The Office doesn't mention it ever up front, right?
Just
They-
until season 9 only.
Yeah,
Well, anyways, here she's kind of asking the other teachers, like, oh, how do you feel about all this? And like, it's distracting and it's going to make things more difficult. And she's talking about how, well, you know, no press is bad press. And that's when we get the, look at Mel Gibson, still thriving.
She uses Daddy's Home 2 as the reference to how thriving Mel Gibson is
You
in
know what?
2022.
That movie is fantastic.
Oh.
So-
I
That's
didn't
John
see it,
Lithgow in
but-
it, and he plays Will Ferrell's dad, and it's just perfect casting.
I mean, the sentence, John Lithgow plays Will Ferrell's dad, does make me a little want to see it.
If you've seen Daddy's Home 1, man, Daddy's Home 2, great Christmas movie for when
I love a good Christmas movie.
the months of December coming up.
We get a little bit of a side talking head where Janine basically says that Ava's terrible at her job. And when we get back to them talking again, she's asking her, like, oh, we need more rugs and all this stuff. And she's very quick to be like, new, need. Like, we don't have money for any of this stuff. And she's like looking at Barbara, like, look at Barbara over here. Like, she doesn't ask for anything. And look at her. She's doing fantastic. And it's basically just because Barbara basically explains, like, I've basically given up. Like, I've accepted the situation for what it is, and I just make the most of what I have. Not to say she doesn't phone it in as a teacher, but as far as trusting in the system to provide for her, she's kind of given up on that dream a long time ago.
I do love that realistic character, though, of Barbara, where it's like that you said it perfectly right there. She doesn't believe in the system, but she's doing her best to be outside of it. It's almost like the same thing as like every 80s cop movie, where it's like, I have to go outside the system so I can do what's good. Like, she knows that she wants to teach these kids, she wants to give them a better future, but she can't rely on like whatever structure is already there because it's
Right.
totally fucked.
By the way, there's no way that in the future there's not a flashback episode of her being young and being just like Janine, and you see like how the system breaks her down. There's no way that doesn't exist. Or
It'll.
at least coming
I feel
out.
like that'll happen at one point.
I would love that episode, yeah.
And there's that point where all the teachers are kind of talking amongst themselves too about like getting things for their classrooms, and it's brought up that Melissa has all these new toy cash registers for her classroom. And it's like, those aren't toys. And we kind of find out that Melissa's someone who just knows people, right? So she knows a guy who can hook her up for whatever, like all these different people.
I'm guessing mafia ties. Like
It
she
sounds
has,
kind of like, well, they definitely lean into the I'm
Yeah.
Italian thing, so I feel like it's going to be an unspoken.
An organization, we don't mention the name of,
It fell
that
off
she
the
has
back
to
of the
needs
truck.
rebar. That's my
Well-
favorite thing to offer somebody. Be like, need some rebar?
I like that these cash registers are from a Walmart demolition, so you have these second graders just playing with actual Walmart cashiers, cash registers. Like, what game is that? Like, those aren't even. I guess I can't think too much about it, right? Because they would clearly be like set up into like you can't.
I think you need like a computer system too to work on
Yeah,
those.
like-
I haven't
Walmart's
used a
been
cat.
digital for a very long time. Like in my head, they're these old like ching cash
Right.
registers.
Yeah,
But
I love that they're
that's
like
funny.
80s Walmart cash registers. There's a Walmart in New Hampshire, right across the Massachusetts border. I forget what town it is, but like you're so used to now, like the Walmart supercenters. This is right before COVID. We were in maybe Haverhill going somewhere, and it's like right across the border. We got dinner. And we're like, oh, well, stop in the Walmart and get like beer or whatever. And we walked in, and it was a Walmart from like 1989, and it was magnificent. It was the weirdest, smallest, everything hadn't been touched. it was like being a kid Walmart ever, and I hope that they didn't change it, because it was the worst Walmart ever. It didn't have anything. It was terrible. It was tiny. It was weird, but it felt so like being in like a Bradley's or a Caldor or something again. It was amazing.
Oh, this is like Caldors.
Keep trying. Go ahead. Keep trying.
I was waiting for Joe to mention whatever quirky thing he bought there.
Oh, I bought beer. Frozen chicken tenders. I don't know.
Did they have beer there, it not being a super center?
Yeah, even the New Hampshire one had beer.
Yeah, because when you're in those parts, again, state to state, it's different. So it's always difficult when you, for people listening in other states, it's like you don't know what's normal in other areas, but like here, we can't just walk into like any convenience store or CVS or whatever and just get beer. And then you go in other states where it's just everywhere. You know what I mean? Like
in Maine, you can get it anywhere, whatever you need. But oddly, the Walmart will not sell hard liquor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, up here you get it the grocery store.
Does that have to do with the state liquor store thing they have? No?
No, it's New Hampshire. Maine has no state liquor stores. You can buy hard liquor at like the Walgreens, and you can buy hard liquor at the grocery store. But Walmart, weirdly, doesn't sell hard liquor. I don't know if it's like a thing they do.
That might just be a them thing.
Yeah. Where they're like, maybe somebody shouldn't buy a handle of whiskey at 4 a.m. at the Walmart. It's probably not a good idea.
As they continue to talk too, you also have that like thing where Barbara's kind of like, I don't know, in a way just kind of saying like, listen, there's a reason why like these teachers aren't lasting here. And talking about like how Jacob has to go for a smoke break every 5 minutes and then says that this place has more turnovers than a bakery. I thought I was going to get I was waiting for another football reference.
That would have been the spot for one, yeah. Speaking of bakeries, is that kind of Boston's Pat's and Gino's?
I don't think people think of it that way. Like, I don't think
everywhere you go, it's Mike's Pastry and well, it's really just Mike's, but a Modern is the other one that people go to.
Bovis too. There's 3.
Bovis, yeah.
But I don't think that's a renowned thing. I don't think you talk to someone in like in Wyoming or like North Dakota and be like, hey, like, you live in Boston? Like, do you go to Mike's Pastry? Like, that doesn't happen. But I think
it's more around New England. Yeah, New England and other parts of the country that have big Italian populations just have those bakeries, right?
I think people find out when they travel to Boston. You start Googling like places to visit in Boston. And
yeah,
like, make sure you go to Modern.
Pop up, yeah.
But like Pat's and Gino's are one of those things that everybody knows about. Everybody. This is also in the conversation when Jacob talking about he was trying to compare something to when he taught in Zimbabwe for a little while. And I was kind of confused because he was just kind of using that. I don't know. He must bring it up all the time.
That's what he just must bring it up all the time.
He's trying to relate to the other people because he feels weird being like, you know, a minority among a predominantly black school.
Because like Janine shuts him down. It's like, what did I say to you about talking about your time in Africa? And he's like, you told me to stop. And it's like, but it didn't sync with me watching it in the moment. Like, why is she so, because she's not a mean character and she like shut him down when he's just trying to talk about his life experience. So I figured it had to be a product of he always does this and she's just tired of it.
This is when they needed a cutaway and they didn't have one.
This would be a good cutaway scene, yeah. Because that's like what you think, right? It's like he just brings it up all the time, or also she's like trying, because she is friends with him, she doesn't want him to like embarrass himself or say it to somebody who might shut him down, not politely, you know?
It's probably why he's a white boy at the cheesesteak store.
That's a good point, too. If he goes in there, he's like, they didn't have these when I was in Zimbabwe. And the guy's like, all right, wait.
Ever hear of it?
Keep it moving, yeah.
This is nothing like the food I had in Africa when I was there.
The countries that start with Z sounds like a Jeopardy category. Like foods that start with Q and white men can't jump. White boy. There we go. Boom. What is a quiche? Which is the funniest line of that entire movie.
Right around here is when a couple teachers are talking, you hear like a commotion in the hallway. And we find out that Miss Schwartz, she was a teacher, like who was in the room earlier I mentioned, where she was just kind of like in the most chaotic of rooms, kicked one of the students. And everyone in the hallway is going nuts. So like they run over to see what's going on, and she's like, "He hit me first." And it's like, so by saying first, you're admitting to hitting back.
You also hit back. Yeah, you're not trying to stop it.
You kind of have to admit it. You're being followed around by a documentary team.
True.
Camera didn't catch the hit, though. Well, as far as we know, we're following a different camera.
That crew didn't.
But, yeah, that becomes like a whole thing. And, you know, it just... I don't know, like that's an instant fire, right? Like if you start
Oh,
a
yeah,
kid,
yeah.
let alone a kid at that age.
I mean, if you
if you're
kick
not
a
at
high school
Catholic-
kid,
if you're
it's
not
an
at a
instant
Catholic
fire.
school, then yeah.
Yeah, right. With no actual being able to do that. But like, yeah. So what's the oldest kid in this school? 9, 10? Yeah, you can't have a full grown woman kicking a child.
Because they go over it, like it's the one thing you can't do. Like you can threaten them, you can yell at them, you can threaten the parents, you can mildly embarrass them, but you cannot hit them.
And all the cutaways to each teacher talking about how you can't do that. That's probably my favorite scene of the whole episode.
It is a good scene, yeah, because they're also all on board. But it makes you feel bad for Miss Schwartz too, right? Where like this woman cracked under the pressure of this terrible system, and everyone there, like, there's no sympathy for her, you know?
Yeah, because we find out from the principal that she basically was instantly fired, which again is justified. But now she has Mr. Johnson teaching the class in her absence, and he's the janitor.
So good.
And then you get that cutaway scene where it's like he's telling all these second graders that the Illuminati run the world.
And this was legitimately the first time I laughed in the episode. It's like, what is this at the halfway point?
And I will say, without being like other episodes, for sure, the best character of this entire series is Mr. Johnson. He is he's glue
Creed.
that keeps the show funny. He's perfect. He's the Creed. Yeah, exactly.
Described as the 70-year-old custodian who voted for Kanye.
Yeah.
They like set him up perfectly to be like, oh, this guy is the guy you want. Is like the Nick saying Creed is perfect, right? Like you only see him a little bit at first, and you keep weeding him in more and more into storylines because he's such a funny character.
But also, you have to toy that line with a character like that, because if you give too much, yeah.
I will say though, there's nothing funnier to me than later Creed, where like he shows up covered in blood. And he's like, it's like that stuff, or like, you know, there's just so many insane things Creed does later in the end where you're like, this is so fun. But like the early Creed 2, where he's like, I want to introduce you to my son. He's like, I'm not gay. He's like, what's your name? Like it just gets so fucking weird, you know?
Yeah.
That this character feels like that. He feels like early Creed.
I feel like if you were listening to our show for the first time, and if you are, thank you for listening and catching up on us. If someone was to write a review on Apple, it would say like, a group of friends who don't cover The Office but don't stop talking about The Office.
Well, it's hard to be people who are like, you know, in their 30s talking about sitcoms who The Office doesn't like hold a big
It's
part
hard to
over,
not
you know?
draw the comparisons when
It's
you're
just
doing
such a big
mockumentary.
influence.
Yeah,
The Office
mockumentary.
has been was my go to sleep show for like 3 years, and I've seen the show all the way through like at least 5 times because of that. Like,
But also, this is a mockumentary sitcom about Pennsylvania. Like, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, of course. This is the conversation after we find out this girl's fired too, where Janine's like, okay, like enough, like we need some money here, and like things are getting bad. And Ava's like says, okay, you know what, I'll try to get a small budget request, and you know, and we'll figure out from there. She's talking about like, can we even get rugs? And she's like, yeah, just write an email and like put everything you need in it, and we'll look at it after that. And she's like super excited now, and now she's almost like mocking Barbara now, for Barbara doesn't believe in the system, right? And now she's like, look at this, now I can write an email with all the things we need, and we're gonna get this like magic wand, and all our problems are solved. And she's kind of putting it in Barbara's face, which is kind of funny because usually intimidated by her in a way. So like she has this confidence that's like bursting in her at the moment at the thought of like getting all these things for the school. Her optimism is taking over.
It's weird that she, like, I mean, you don't know her history, right? But like, we all had jobs before we were in our early 20s where like you got beaten down, right? Where like you just accepted you weren't going to get things that you wanted. So I guess you kind of get the idea too that she's like super, like this is maybe her first job, right? Like she never worked, she went to college, now she's a teacher, and she's so like the system's gonna work, right? It's like it's hard to want to crush her because she's never been crushed before,
Or axed or smashed.
or axed or smashed, or coned.
what's the new one?
Blast. Blaster.
I love weirdo demolition members.
For those of you
But
who
you
don't like wrestling, I'm sorry. That's also something that'll happen a bit here.
But you know what I mean? Like we all had teenage jobs, right? So like we were given that mentality of like you'll want something and you won't get it. That's how work is. And it feels like that she is too, you know, doesn't have that experience.
The world hasn't like completely like, crushed her yet. Here we meet Gregory, who's the replacement sub teacher, who's going to be, he's like, I'm the teacher who's here to replace the one who punted a student.
And punted.
And Ava's like, oh, I thought like someone required, and Ava's like, oh, I thought one of the colleagues here hired a stripper for me. And like laughing, goes, okay. Like so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What does she call him? Chocolate drop through the whole rest of the episode as well.
Yeah, like that's not very good for the school that they had an assault and then sexual harassment in the same
Right, just,
day
like,
after.
over and over again.
And then this was referenced earlier. This is Tyler James Williams who plays Gregory, and we know him because he was the star of Everybody Hates Chris. And it's like, it is crazy because that show to me isn't that old. And now I'm looking at an adult man with an adult, deeper voice and going,
Right.
he was a child in a time where we watched the show. Like, he's like, how old is he? Like 30? I don't know. It's just weird to see him.
Yeah, he's 30, I think, exactly this year.
So
yeah.
it's weird
Well,
to see...
we talked about this when we did the show, but I think most people saw Everybody Hates Chris in syndication.
True. Yeah, later.
So we might have caught it a little later too. But yeah, because in my brain, he's still a child. Like, but that show is
Right.
also a show that's older than you remember. So it's just, I don't know, to see him here, it didn't flag me at first. It was more, that guy looks familiar. And then I clicked it and went, oh my God, it is him.
And also good for him as a child actor who was good as a child and good as an adult, because he's great in this too.
Yeah, plays it, and it's, I mean, obviously it's played very differently, and it's like, you don't see the same style. Like, he's going about, you know, his performance is very, very different.
I like the idea, though, in a weird world where now he just keeps doing Chris Rock roles. So we get, like, a remake of New Jack City where he gets to play Pookie, or we can do
and Lethal
a
Weapon
number
4.
of other movies. Yeah. Every Chris Rock movie from, like, the 90s. Come on, let's do it.
Gotta have all
Scotty, I'm gonna die.
You have all the other teachers kind of greeting him along the way, and you have Jacob who thinks that they're going to be like bros because there's not a lot of like male teachers at the school. And it's just like so awkward with him trying to like relate to this guy. He's like, oh, I get someone I could talk sports with. Like, you like women's tennis? Or as I like to call it, you know, just tennis.
I think that's his funniest line of the whole episode. It like gives you his whole character all the way through. Yeah, and the best thing about Gregory too is when he does his talking head, he says that he applied here to be the principal and he didn't get the job, and somebody else got the job.
No, he did got the job and they took it away from him.
Oh, right. He
Yeah,
gets the job, but they take it away from him, and we know that Ava's the principal. And then it cuts to Ava, who is just beaming ear to ear. It says that she caught the superintendent cheating on the deacon at the church they go to. It's just like, I need a job, and then gets it. Which makes this whole thing so funny that she is so unqualified. And I wish we had, like, a better backstory on what she was doing before she became school principal.
And what's nice here too is like, not only is that a funny little quip, but it also explains that his intention isn't to be there long because his aspirations are not as a teacher. It's to be like, he went to school to be like more administrative level and be a principal. So the way things cycle later in the episode, it's very telling, right? Because at this point we know his intentions are not to stick around.
It's a weird thing to me too. I never thought of this. Like, literally the other day I was talking to my sister and she was asking me about somebody who's now one of the principals in our school system we grew up with, who was our gym teacher at the time, right? And I always just thought that, like, you kind of just became a teacher and you had a long term, and if you were good, they sort of promoted you up. I never knew that you could go to school to be a school teacher, a school principal. I didn't think that was like a major.
If it's who I'm thinking of, she's still rotten.
Oh, it's a guy.
Oh, then it's not who I'm thinking of.
And he wants you to giddy up for Gaga.
Really?
Yeah, he's one of the principals. And that's good for him, right? Like, but that's what I always thought. Is like, it's one of those jobs where like merit base works up, right? Like a job, be like I don't know if you're like a firefighter or a cop or whatever. Like, you do this thing and you learn stuff.
Winthrop has multiple principals that are former gym teachers.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, it also explains why none of us graduated college and why we're all as smart as we are. I think probably, but
It does explain why we're all super athletes.
Is
also true.
Yeah. Anyways, not to regionalize it too much, we get back to Janine's class, and you hear like the kids going ew, and you look over, and one of the students threw up like right on the desk, and she has to like pick her up and like bring her over to the bathroom area. Now I was a little confused by this. She brings this girl, it's a female teacher and a female student. Why are they in the men's room?
So I wondered the same thing.
I tracked it that there were the ladies' room and that
There were
the
definitely
new guy...
urinals in this bathroom.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
see urinals.
Yeah, they were all up against the wall right where he's standing.
That's
right.
a good place to put urinals, is against the wall.
I said where he's standing.
But were there water cookies in those urinals?
No, it wasn't a trough.
Oh, I miss a good trough.
But it's one of those, like, I don't know. So I get that you need to have them interact because this is where Janine meets Gregory for the first time, because Gregory's dealing with the student that apparently had a bathroom accident himself. So when she first meets Gregory, he's coming out of a bathroom stall holding pants of a child. And
Holding soaked children's pants. Just
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bad introduction.
it's just like, she's like, random man, child pants, security. I thought that was funny, just the random man child pants thing. And he's explaining what happened. A kid was about to have an accident and then ended up peeing in his pants. And but yeah, it was just like, I get you want these two to cross, and this is kind of both of them are ripped out of their classroom because of bathroom emergencies. So, okay. But they are clearly in a men's room, and I don't understand how this makes sense.
Maybe the school is just so low budget the women's bathroom is destroyed, so they all have to use the same bathroom.
Or that she's so flustered taking the kid out because she's new that she just like goes into the first bathroom, the first sink she can find, you know?
Also, like, Gregory is completely soaked because I guess when he went to flush the toilet, like, the water shot back up at him. It's like, oh, no one told you about reversey toilet.
Did you not get a laugh out of that, Ferg? Because I was like, Ferg will get a laugh. We'll all
I thought
get a laugh
reversey
out of it.
toilet was
That is
funny.
funny, yeah.
No, because
Adding an
that is my
E?
nightmare. If I'm taking a shit and even like water splashes back up at my butt, like that ruins my day. So for it to shoot up and completely hit me, that is literally my nightmare.
So I guess the bidet we all chipped in to get you for your birthday is out the window.
I like how he said it ruins his day. Like,
He's just like moping around. Like, what's up, man? Like, I don't want to talk about it.
The water tickled my balls again and my whole day's thrown off.
That water is everyone who's pooped and peed in it all day.
What,
Or all
do you not
month, or
flush
all
it?
year.
Yeah, if it happens
that's
at home,
not
it's you as well. It's yours.
I don't care if it's at home. Although then it's got my like poo water. I don't like that either. So I do care if it's at home.
Okay.
You know, we could move you into an outhouse. You'd never have to worry about the risk.
but then you got to worry about spiders.
Butthole
I'm not worried
spiders.
about spiders. Just poo water.
Well, now we know Ferg's kryptonite.
Yeah.
Please don't throw poop water at me. I think that should be a lot of people's kryptonite.
Genuine me.
So as this is going
Yeah.
completely off the rails, I do want to cycle back a little bit. This interaction between Janine and Gregory, I mean, obviously, it's not even like too subtle. This is definitely the will they won't they set
This
up.
is the very obvious will they won't.
This is
they.
a they will. It's not even a will they won't.
Yeah, this is a when will they.
Yes, and I feel like, and I don't know, and Joe, you've watched it, I haven't yet. I feel like they're not gonna wait too long on this one either.
No, they do a great job of this. They draw this out and they give each other both significant others into the second season, which is, I think, a smart way to do it. And then you find out too that her significant other is just like a guy that walks all over her and is like an idiot, right? Because like that's her character. So the writing is like they do. I assume third season must be they will, if they ever make a third season, because TV currently doesn't exist right now. But
So after that, we get back into the classrooms, and I believe we're in Barbara's class, and Janine's walking in because she wants Barbara to kind of look over her proposal for all the things that she's going to request for this emergency fund. She's telling Janine, like, straight up, like, listen, like, you're not getting all these things you think you're going to get, you know? And, like, I don't know, she's very, like, cold towards Janine. I mean, we see kind of a shift later in the episode, but I think it's just that, like, that realism. She's just trying to be, like, I don't know, matter of fact towards her. I don't know where she kind of views Janine at this point. Like, if she even likes her yet, or if she's just trying to, like, clue her in.
yeah, I don't think it's an issue of like. I think it's more of I think that the way I look at it is she thinks she will last as a teacher and that she is a good teacher,
Yeah.
but she has to give her that like dose of realism to be like, look, for you to respect me and yeah, like if you want to be like me, if that's your goal, be like a 30-year teacher, you have to understand this is not how things work. Like you have too much
You're
You're
letting your
delusional
hopes,
about how it works,
You're getting your hopes up over this thing that's probably not going to happen. So you just kind of have to understand, like this, that it probably is not going to happen, and that you have to figure out a way to move forward when it doesn't.
It's also been brought up a lot in the episode that new teachers never last there, and out of 15, there's only 2 left.
Yep.
So maybe she doesn't want to get attached to the new person and be friendly if she's just going to be gone next year.
That's
when the
probably
system spits her out.
primarily why, yeah.
It's the same as the other teacher not wanting to learn Gregory's name yet. It's like it's a
Right.
waste of time. You're not going to be here.
And especially him, he's a substitute. He's not even like a hired full-time teacher.
Yeah. And now, during this conversation, we get Ava, the principal, over the loudspeaker making an announcement that she needs everyone to come up front to the entrance for a special announcement about some much-needed improvements to the school that she just made happen. And now this
Not
is
everyone,
like,
all the teachers.
okay, all the teachers, yeah. And this is Janine again getting very excited and being like, she's like singing and like really like kind of a we did it moment, and telling Barbara again like this, like, look, like change does happen, like have faith in the system. And they all head out, and there's it's almost looked at like press conference style, the way it's set up to show them that like what's going on. It's just it's unveiled that basically all Ava did was had a new sign made for the school, and it has the name of the school with her picture on it, and
She's leaning against the T's on Abbott, which is the best way to do it. Although in between all of them with her arms out would have been fun too.
And it was like, it cost the full $3,000 that she was allotted in this emergency fund, which also felt like not enough money to do anything nowadays. Like, even in, like, anything helps, but $3,000 in the scope of, like, this entire elementary school, like, what were you going to do with that?
At one point, the money was for an aid, right? Like, there's one thing, she even says, she's like, then you get the rugs or the aids or whatever you need. So $3,000 for a 9-month salary? That does not work out. Like, that's not enough money that would.
It was not
going
to cover it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the rugs, like I kept thinking, I was like, why don't they just buy the rugs and not that? And then I was like, I remembered when I bought a rug, I'm like, shit, rugs are expensive.
Rugs are a lot more expensive
Rugs
than
are
you think.
crazy expensive. And if you want those fun new ones now, they're like, you can put it in the washer machine and you can always wash it. You're like, oh my God, that's amazing. They're like, this costs like 3 rugs. You're like, well, fuck me. I'll just buy 3 rugs.
And like, she had to pay like extra money to get this rushed and made immediately. Like, not only did she decide like, this is what I'm doing with the money, it's, we need this sign immediately to fix the school.
This is like when I almost got a giant check made and then found out how much it cost to do it. Was like, well, that'll take away from the charity and I can't do it. So
Also
like
from
getting
the
a
office.
rush. Yeah, well, I did in real life though.
Yeah.
I didn't. I tried to.
And I would assume that maybe part of the sign and having her picture on it, like this was all the optics because there's this film crew here and she's trying, I don't know, like this reveal to her is good for the news piece or whatever that's being made. Because Ava's delusional. Like she doesn't realize this is a terrible idea, but and I think that having her on it, there's something about the vanity all kind of clicks together at this point.
I feel like that's what makes her character fun too, is like even when in this next scene where they're doing this sort of like a not happy moment, you'd never really get that she's super vindictive. She's kind of so delusional that like she doesn't fire Janine ever, right? Or threaten to. She doesn't fire any of the other teachers. The only time she ever fires somebody is if they kick a kid, right? Which like you have to. So she only really has to step up. Like I feel like she can like be like, we'll make this work for everybody, which is sort of endearing.
Because what happened was, Janine in the next scene is talking to a couple of the other teachers and she's like, like enough's enough. Basically, like, I figured out how to get rid of Ava, wrote a letter to the superintendent. And the other teacher's like, what are you doing? Like, the superintendent doesn't read those emails. Like, those all got auto-forwarded back to, like, the principal. So now she basically sent a scathing email explaining why Ava needs to be fired, and it goes straight to Ava.
Also, what a terrible superintendent of the school system. Yeah. You have a teacher who emails the superintendent of the school system, and it bounces back to the principal? They never read it? I mean, look, we already know he's a bad guy because he did a nepotism hire after getting caught cheating, but like that's a terrible abuse of power here.
Well, we're seeing that, like, I mean, obviously there's just not a lot of love and attention put into the school system. And without the passion of certain teachers who like genuinely care for these students, like there's not going to be a lot of effort put in on all levels. Because I think everyone just mails it in after a while.
Right, but being a teacher is a calling.
I don't like that she jumped to doing a letter to try to get her fired instead of talking to her first, or at least express your displeasure. Like, they're all up until this point getting along, so this came out of the blue. I don't like that part of Janine that did that.
Sure. I mean, it's one of those, we're walking into a story late, so how many of these things happened in the past to get us there? But yeah, it's as far as we're seeing, it doesn't necessarily, even though Janine's in the right, I guess in our brains, it doesn't paint you as a positive character if you're calling for someone to be fired over this.
But also, like, either you create a burner email, right? Like, you create, like, a masked email or whatever, or, like, you create a Google email, or you send, like, a physical letter and you sign it, the teachers at Abbott Elementary. Yeah. You don't get yourself so caught up in it that your name, email, and signature are part of it. Like, there's no way that's going to go well, you know what I mean?
Also, why is she under the impression she's a brand new teacher that this person's going to take her word over the person who's been there for a long time?
I don't think Ava's necessarily been there for a very long time either.
We don't know that. Yeah, it's a good question. How long has Ava been the principal?
I think she's been there for a while because of just how, like, her relationship with the other teachers.
No, because think about it. Well. Gregory applied and was supposed to get that job, and he's not that old, so...
Yeah, I guess so.
True.
But yeah, so Ava cuts in, like, during this conversation, as Janine's finding out in real time that Ava now definitely saw that email, is when Ava cuts in, and you can see her staring from her office at them when she's making the intercom announcement that all the teachers need to meet up because it's come to her attention that one of them thinks it's okay to go over her head. So now during lunch break, they all have to meet up and learn how to become a work family.
I can't think of anything worse to do on a lunch break.
It's just so uncomfortable, right? In that moment.
Do you think she did this on purpose, not only to punish her, but to make everybody else dislike her? Like, they have to go to the meeting because of her, and then the meeting comes and she wants to shit all over her on the meeting and wants everybody else to do the same too.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm in the moment, I'm kind of putting myself in Janine's shoes and like what an uncomfortable situation you have to walk into, because now your boss might want to fire you in this moment, and on top of it is about to like belittle you in front of everyone and basically call you out. So it's just like what a terrible like weighted situation to have to walk into now.
They really do a good job of making you dislike the principal.
Yeah, I mean, she's one of those ones where I would assume as this show fleshes out more, they're going to have to make her more likable and give her some storylines that make you enjoy her being there. But here, she's zero redeemable qualities. She's just a shitty person.
I didn't find her unlikable until this point. Like, I thought the sign thing was like, she's arrogant, but I didn't think she was being vindictive or anything like that. And then with this scene, it's like, wow, she's a bully.
And in fairness, I guess, to give her any credit, if I was in her shoes and I get an email that was supposed to go over my head from someone who works under me calling for me to be fired, am I going to be happy about that either? You know what I mean? Like, obviously anyone, it's really tough to just disassociate and pretend like, maybe I need to correct myself. Maybe it's my, like, no, you can be like, fuck her. She's trying to get me fired. So I can understand the mindset, but it's a tough situation.
It's a juvenile way to do it. Bring everyone around her and you suck. Like,
so basically, like, we start this meeting now with all the teachers, and Ava's saying, like, hey, like, we're all going to just take turns picking randomly, like, different people, and we're just going to go over things that we don't like about them. It's like, let's start with Janine. And, says that she's pushy, squeaky, and annoying. And then she's like, all right, anyone else want to, like, join in on this? Like, let's just talk about Janine more. And no one wants to until we get that custodian again who just jumps in and just goes like, she's got big feet.
Again, perfect Creed use, right? Like, just pop him in for one last time for one comment and then done.
Just in the way back of the room, she got pretty big feet.
And oddly, like, why was there a student there? How did that happen?
Well, she was like a character witness for the principal for some reason.
Yeah, because it's like it's a courtroom. Like, this is 12 Angry Men, and they made this poor girl miss her lunch.
There is a point, like, later in the scene, though, because for some reason, even though they all had to miss lunch, Janine found a way to get some pizza. does offer to that student who's missing lunch also, and the student who is hungry doesn't want to eat it. So that speaks volumes about how poor this pizza is.
Yeah.
Not quality pizza.
I never minded school pizza.
Same.
It's always on like TV. It's like disgusting. I'm like, this is delicious.
It's always just like Ilios, which is like, yeah, like you wouldn't go out of your way to get that, but it's fine.
It's weird too, because like it makes you curious, but it's not like you could just go back and see what they serve at school now, because I'm sure everything's so different. Like,
We got lucky, right? Like health concerns became a thing years after we left high school.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yes, we got unhealthy lunches, but in the grand scheme, it was still pretty tasty. You know what I mean? We had like some pretty decent chicken sandwiches. We had some questionable burgers, but I mean, if you were in the mood for
But
a
they were
burger,
good.
it did the
I would
job.
get the burgers
you know?
most days. There was always like when we went to
And
high
the
school,
foil, yeah.
it was like the burger and the chicken sandwiches and the pizza. I think were like every day was available, and then they'd always have like a
Yeah.
special item of the day. Which
Well, in high school too, we had the sandwich bar, which was great. I used to get like turkey and cheese roll-ups every day. It was great.
I had no idea how much Joe was into, like, you know, like cold cuts like this.
Yeah, it's my go-to. Yeah.
Again, to stuff we talked about off air, but Joe's love of a ham and cheese sandwich.
And a
There are
cannoli.
so few foods that don't make me sick, so you really got to lean in when
What
you can.
is you said mustard for your ham and cheese? Anything else?
I mean, if I'm just making a sandwich because I'm trying to eat quickly, it would just be ham, cheese, and mustard. But if I had my druthers or if I was getting like a sub from a sub shop, ham, cheese, pickle, tomato is how I usually go.
You don't do any mayo?
No, if I do actually a sandwich from like a sub shop too, I do ham, cheese, pickle, tomato, nothing as far as dressing.
I can't do
No.
any sandwich meat
Interesting.
without mayo. To me,
I
deli meat
can
is
if
just
I'm
so
home.
dry.
Well, if I'm making like a turkey and cheese sandwich, like I'm gonna add mayo because it needs it. It's usually like the turkey.
I still
itself
do
isn't-
mustard.
I'm not a big mustard guy.
Mustard and mayo together can be good. You really have to get it's like mainly mustard. Like you can't go heavy on the mayo
You
at
know
all.
what it is? Mayo mixes with things very well. Like mayo and ketchup also go well together.
Right. If
Yeah.
you think about like, there's like when you get like a deluxe burger for some places and they're like, and it has mayo, mustard, and ketchup on it. Like, I would never do that myself, but when it's there, sometimes you're like, this is pretty good.
I just recently stopped putting mayonnaise on my burgers, actually. I used to be a pickle, onion, ketchup, mayo burger, and I subbed out the mayo for mustard. I do like a traditional like McDonald's double
Yeah.
cheeseburger style. And,
only way I don't
Jay's
do
shaking his
mayo-
head because let's hear yours, Jay.
Yeah.
I
What's
don't
your
like.
burger?
I just don't like mustard. So
I'm with you on that.
we've talked burgers plenty of times in the past, but like clean slate. If we're talking like we're at a fast food place and this isn't like some specialty thing, usually I do lettuce, tomato, mayo is kind of like the all the time, or and I might add bacon once in a while. So, but yeah, we take bacon out of the equation because most people like bacon. It's it's like a.
What do you
bonus.
get out of lettuce on a burger? Like, is it a consistency thing, or you do like it's not? It can't be a flavor thing. It
I
doesn't
take
taste
it.
like anything.
It's both. Here's the thing: you can't have warm bacon on it. You have to warm lettuce. If you put a piece of nice, crisp, like just out of the fridge lettuce on it, it's got crunch.
See, I
it's
don't
got
like
flavor.
a big leaf
No,
of
it ruins
anything on any sandwich. I like if it has to be lettuce, shred it.
You
Like
shred
a
it.
nice like a fresh shred.
That's going to be in a
That-
sub. Shredded lettuce.
I can
is
do
for
it on a
subs.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
like
like
shred us
lettuce
in a
on
sub.
anything, but if it has to be shredus, yeah.
We always call it. Whenever we go to the grocery store, like we need lettuce tonight, but like, do we need like green leaf or shreddus? That's what we used to call it. No, it's really good. Shreddus on a taco.
Oh yeah,
makes
it
it
has to be. You can't do a full
very-
leaf of
very
lettuce on a
Taco
taco.
Bell-y.
That's some
Well,
psycho
that's-
You
shit.
still can, but you gotta strip it. You gotta, like,
That's
cut it in
Americanized Taco Bell tacos. Like if you're getting a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
taco,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember
Oh.
there's a place down the street from my house that has tacos, and it's listed. It's like it feels so. It's like you can order them either Mexican style or American style. So if you get it Mexican style, it's just like cilantro, and onion, and if you get it American style, it's like shredded lettuce and cheese.
Yeah. The right way to do it. And I bake mine.
That's not the right way to do it. I enjoy it that like I love Taco Bell, but like that far from the correct way to have it.
No. But I'm saying if you ever make tacos at home, right, and you like putting cheese on your tacos, the best way to do it is when you're done making all the taco meat, load up the shells, then put cheese on them, and then pop them in the oven for like 5 minutes. The cheese makes everything together, so when you bite it, nothing falls out at you. And then you put your salsa or taco sauce and lettuce tomato on top. It's perfect.
No sour cream? Fuck you.
I like sour cream more on nachos than tacos.
One of the very, very few dairy products that you can get dairy-free, and it's not that bad. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever had
Sour
dairy-free sour cream. I'm not sure I would notice if you didn't tell me. We should really just start a food podcast on the
Right,
side.
yeah.
90% of our tangents
I
are
feel
we
like
go food often.
arguing
yeah.
Why?
about the
I
burgers.
eat like a child, and Joe can't eat anything because his stomach is broken.
if we gotta get boring real quick. So eventually, like this berating of Janine ends. We kind of cut to the scene afterwards, and you see like a student who's like asleep on the floor. Janine's talking to a couple of the other teachers, and she's kind of explaining like, oh, like he sleeps like there all the time. Like he doesn't get much sleep at home, and his parents fight, and like he's in a bad situation. So like he always falls asleep, and I would always have him, tell him to sleep at the desk, but he says that the rug's softer, and it's like even softer than his bed at home. And
That's
they kind of
heart-wrenching. That scene really hits you.
That was sad.
I would argue it's too heart-wrenching. I get what they were going for, and they
bit
didn't
too
need
much,
to go
though, maybe?
that hard with it, I don't
Yeah,
think.
I get it. You have poor conditions. Like,
Yeah, but I agree with you, Nick. I think they could have been like, tell him to sleep at the desk because that's softer than the desk. You'd have been like, this poor kid's got a tough life at home and he's tired. And then you just
you should be telling him don't sleep in school, not sleep somewhere
it's-
better.
It's at lunch though. It's at his lunch break. But like twisting the knife in and being like, and it's better than his straw bed at home. You're like, oh, this poor fucking kid.
And it's like one of those, it's explaining some of the importance to her of getting this new rug too, because that rug isn't just about, it calms the kids down. It's another reason for us to root for her to get the rug, right? Because now we know that like it affects
Right.
like this kid now so strongly. And this is also, I think, when Barbara really starts to warm up to her, because now she's seeing that and she sees like that this is kind of why she's pushing for these rugs so much. And she's trying to tell Janine, like, when you teach somewhere like here, like you have to be everything. And sometimes you have to make your own changes because like we're also the admin, we're the therapists, we're the social workers, we're the second parents, sometimes we're even the first parents. And, we do this because we love it. That's part of it. Like, and we know, like, historically, that it's always been the joke, the common knowledge that teachers are underpaid. So, like, when she's telling her this, like, obviously we do this job because we care.
It's a bummer, man, because it's such an underpaid job, underappreciated job, and you spend so much money in college to become a teacher, right? Like, to go in and get like your master's in education to become a teacher full time and then get paid so little, like, that's where we have some fuck ups in this country for sure.
Yeah, you really gotta want to do it. And I'm glad there are people out there who do want to
Sure,
do
yeah.
it, because I certainly don't.
Right, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And we've all had good teachers and bad teachers, and you remember the good ones and you remember the bad ones. You remember them both differently,
Melissa says she could make more money working on the street. And this was like a nice moment too, where again, like not just Barbara, but I think all these teachers are bonding a little bit in this moment. And they kind of decide, like,
she walked out of the meeting and they all followed her out. That was the
yeah,
real
that too.
moment.
It's that,
Yeah,
like,
that was the big moment they left with her.
yeah, because that whole like, let's have a moment where we all just berate Janine for going over my head was, I think, a little much for a bunch of them. But yeah, after seeing this rug situation, that's when they kind of like, in this whole conversation where we have to do things for ourselves becomes a, well, what if we all like pull together and we get Janine a rug and all the teachers are kind of on board for it? It's like, well, no, I can't make you guys do that, but like maybe I know someone who knows someone, like referencing like Melissa and like her ability to get things. And that's when we get that like, well, I'm gonna have to bake a ziti. We find out that is going to be the road that we take. It's gonna be, Melissa's gonna figure this out through her avenues.
I love Melissa's character here. I mean, like, this is where the show becomes to, like, do you want to watch episode 2, right? Like, introduce all these characters, they're kind of disparate, and then all of a sudden the last 2 minutes of the show, right, like, they pull together. Like, I think I think the writing of this and the way they timed it is very good.
I like when the truck pulls up with the rugs and they're all kind of collecting them. They all get a rug each. Because this is basically someone who worked demo for the stadium, right? We already found out that they're working on the Eagles' new stadium.
And we're to assume, I think, that he's the same guy who worked demo on the Walmart.
Potentially, yeah. And she asks, Janine asks for his name when she's thanking him, and he goes, I got no name.
He says that at the same time, though, as Melissa goes, he's got no name. Like, they, like, mirror each other.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't get this from me. And
this guy, too, is, like, basically a guy with no name in a million fun shows and movies, too, where he's, like, in the movie Vice, or he's, like, in Justified, where it's like, I love this dude for, like, playing that same character over and over again. I love these kind of character actors.
They're nice. And those rugs are just like Philadelphia Eagles rugs that look like they probably would have been on the ground during, like, at the corporate offices and stuff.
Did anybody else think that they were just going to get a bunch of turf?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I
That would have been amazing.
It's like each room, it's like the 50-yard line in one of the rooms.
It's like a 10 by 10 turf.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would have been more comfortable to sleep on.
Maybe.
I feel like AstroTurf is probably comfortable at the beginning and then gets bad as it's worn down.
I don't think it's ever comfortable to, like, lay down on. It's probably a little rough. It might be a little, like, spongy to, like, walk on, but, like, it's not, like, the texture on your skin is not going to be fun.
Well, that's not a soft, springy rug. It's not like a brand new one from a store, so that's not going to be comfortable either.
Yeah, those are also, like, the consistency of that rug is the kind of rug you get for, like, when you walk into your house and, like, kick your shoes off. It's not it's like a big fluffy rug.
The mudroom rug.
Yeah, it's like a doormat rug.
Yeah.
And we get that little bit of a scene after that where it's Janine and Gregory again, and they're talking and they're kind of going over some stuff and how he's going to get used to things there. He asks about the smell on the walls, but apparently that's something that you just never get used to. And she's asking him about, so, like, you're subbing with, like, the intention of going full time, right? He's like, oh, we'll see, like, you know, maybe. And you kind of get that cutaway from him where he's like, oh, you know, I think I'm going to stick around for a little while, you know, for the kids. And that, you know, again, that's, we've seen the interaction between him and Janine. We know that that's where they're going to want to eventually take this. But we went from his intention was to just be here temporarily because his aspirations are to be a principal to, you know, maybe I'm just going to stick around at the school for a little bit.
Maybe he'll be like one of our substitute teachers, and you'll find out that apparently he also has $1 million WWE memorabilia collection he never told anybody about, but loves to go on TV and flaunt.
Well, I will say at the time when we were in high school, those things were not worth what they are worth today. But
That's
the
true.
collector's market on everything is skyrocketed. But yeah, we're getting, like, kind of that final little cutscene after that where Janine's kind of talking about, it's like a narration almost over other scene, and it's her talking about how happy she is, you know, she was able to provide for her students and how huge that is. And, you know, as she's talking about this, you see her, like, in the bathroom now trying to fix, like, reversey toilet. And she's got, like, the little YouTube video pulled up on top of it and, like, trying to plunge it.
Did anybody think that the joke here was going to be the phone falling in the toilet? I felt like they telegraphed that.
No, I knew she was going to get nailed with the water.
I saw this coming.
The water gag makes more sense. That is the way to do things nowadays. It's like any little thing now, you can pretty much watch a YouTube video. It's really, for all the things, right? For all the dumb shit that's
it's
out
everybody's
there, like,
dad, yeah.
Yeah, like
It's
so
huge.
easy.
It's hugely helpful, yeah.
Little things, like I remember just replacing, like, my light fixture, and it's such an easy task. It's not difficult at all. But just you watch that quick little YouTube video and you do it, and you got the light fixture up, and, like, all of a sudden I feel like I'm a contractor for 10 seconds. Because
Yeah, you feel like you're a real man for a moment in your life, yeah.
Use it to cook. You feel like you're a chef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the first time, like, years ago, like, I replaced, like, a light switch and how accomplished I felt, thinking it was, like, some, like, difficult task. But yeah, in any event, that was, like, the conclusion of the episode. Yeah, so, again, the show, as popular as it is, I don't have a lot of back info on it. I mean, we kind of covered it, basically. You know, the creator of the show, Quinta Brunson, like, who also stars in it, kind of did this. I mean, this thing won Emmys, like, right away, became, like, this big...
This episode won an Emmy.
Yeah. For comedy writing, though, which is why I thought it was, like, interesting, because, again...
You could say it's not funny.
It's just
no
not...
jokes.
Yeah, there's not, like, much humor in this episode. So when you go, like, outstanding comedy writing, you go, like, where is all the comedy?
The water splashing up is a joke. She's got big feet is a joke. There are a lot of jokes in here.
Yeah,
Not
I
a
don't know
lot.
what you guys are looking for. Do you want somebody to, like, stand in front of you and hit you with a punchline, like, every 10
Jerry
seconds?
Seinfeld, like, what?
the-
People drive buses.
Like, the environment is funny. Like, that's part of
What's
it.
funny? The poverty-stricken school where the kid has to sleep on the floor because he has nothing at home.
Yes,
That's
that's
all
the
the-
part I'm talking about. Yes, that's
That's-
it. Yes, good job.
It's a laugh riot. I'm with Nick on this one. I think you guys are trying to look for jokes versus the entire thing being funny and having little punches that make you laugh.
I'm searching for the comedy, and there
I'm
was
just
very
saying,
little comedy.
you canceled Growing Pains because there wasn't enough jokes. Same thing.
Anybody need rebar? That's a joke. Like, all of these are jokes.
I would say that a lot of these shows that you watch that kind of toy these same lines, we look at them and there's shows that we go, this was not a sitcom, right? This is not a sitcom. This is not a sitcom. And then we look back at it and those tend to have more jokes, like humorous moments throughout the episodes than I got here. And I'm not going to say I dislike the show. I'm not saying that. But a show that's listed as like a comedy, a workplace comedy, I'm like, where was the comedy? There was some like lighthearted moments and like little jokes throughout the way, but I just didn't see that much comedy.
You all gave me shit about The Simpsons. The whole pilot of The Simpsons is a guy not being able to afford gifts for his kids on Christmas.
Yeah, but it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Oh,
And also, to be fair, every good cartoon except for The Critic has a bad pilot. Like, I love The Simpsons. I love King of the Hill. The pilots are not the best episodes. But I'm with Nick on this one. I think this is a comedy and has a lot of jokes and is very funny.
A lot of jokes is a stretch, Joe, that you mentioned 4.
Well, hey, listen, we're at that point anyways. Let's do the green light or cancel. Again, just a reminder, we're short one person, so there will be a tiebreaker. If it comes down to that, you would have Gordo's vote would be included. That's on, again, we post that on Instagram every week later in the week. That'll be S1E1 pod. But that being said, we don't know if it's going to be a tie or not. We're all going to vote. Green light or cancel. I'm going to go in the order I see you guys in. Nick, starting with you.
This one is a green light. I can see it was refreshing because like we talked about earlier, we talked a lot about like The Office and Parks and Rec and all those other docu-style sitcoms that we watched so much of, and then they vanished, right? And I get why they vanished. They vanished because they were kind of really driven into the ground, and it's not because they were bad, but it was just because, I don't know, maybe the market was just kind of oversaturated with them. So to see it come back was like a refreshing sight to see. They did a really good job of introducing you to there's not a ton of characters, which is good. You get a really good idea of the characters that there are, and they give you like the whole runway. Like you can tell where this story is going to go, and I'm definitely intrigued with what may happen at this school. So yeah, it's a green light. I think I will definitely at least watch the second episode and see what happens, but I liked it, and it's a green light.
Joe.
Yeah, so I think we've actually brought this up before, talking about pilots I didn't super enjoy, but liked the show later on because we kept watching it and gave it a chance. And rewatching this pilot, I really enjoyed this. I don't know what I didn't enjoy about it the first time. I pretty much everything Nick said, I agree. It's a good mockumentary style. You don't get over inundated with characters. You get enough of them to know where they're going to go, but to like them enough to want to see them again. I think there was a lot of jokes. I know you guys don't think that. I think there's a lot of funny moments. I think even little things like, you guys need rebar? To me, that's a joke, and I think it lands, and it works, and it's funny. I very much enjoy this show. I hope that they resolve... I mean, we know this will come back, right? It's too big of a show to not make it through the writer's strike when stuff just keeps getting canceled day after day nowadays. But I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more of this again soon. So, green light.
Okay. Before I get to Ferg, I just do want to clarify. You mentioned, now our objective of the show is to watch a show, pretend we've never seen it before, and then rate it based on our first opinion. You said your actual first time ever watching it, you didn't like this episode very much. So it's very interesting for you to then go back and say, I'm greenlighting this based on your first impression of a show when your legit first impression was that you didn't like it.
But we've all done that for shows we've seen before we cover on this show. You might not have liked the episode then, but like it later on.
I've never done that.
Always
Don't question my integrity.
I try to look at it at point blank with fresh eyes every time we do it.
I did too. That's what I'm saying. I didn't like it the first time. I looked at it with fresh eyes. I tried to rewatch it, and if I was just phoning it in for this time, I wouldn't have taken 4 pages of notes and spent 2 hours.
I'm not saying you're phoning it in. I'm just saying that you are.
I did enjoy it way more this time than I thought I would, and it's not because of what I saw in the future of the show.
You're definitely basing it on watching the show as a whole.
No, because I don't think that. I think the show's much better in the second season than the first season. It doesn't mean that I think the pilot's bad, and I think there's more jokes than you guys think there are too.
In any event, Fer, go ahead.
Cancel. I didn't think this show was funny at all. It's not a sitcom because there's no calm. Not only that, like, I can get past that with a lot of shows, but I was bored through the majority of this show until the halfway point where I got my first laugh. It's like, and maybe the opposite of what Nick said, I don't think the mockumentaries really went away because there's so many of them. I think part of it is I'm just kind of over the mockumentaries, with the exception being What We Do in the Shadows, because that's at least different. I don't have much more to say. I did like the characters. They all good actors and stuff. Everybody hates Chris Guy. Love that dude. Other than that, cancel.
Yeah, so I've been conflicted. I thought I didn't dislike the show, but I did have an issue with the lack of what I find to be comedy in it. I don't know. I just feel that it's complicated. I watch it and I think that I'm curious as to how the show's evolved, because I feel like future episodes are funnier. And I feel like that it's one of those things that it gets funnier over time. Because when I'm like looking at like the ratings, and actually I forgot to mention that earlier, and I guess just to cover it now, Rotten Tomatoes, 99%, 90% audience score.
By the way, it's come out today that Rotten Tomatoes accepts money for good reviews.
Oh,
yeah, I sent it to the group when I saw that earlier. Yeah, so a story came out via, I think it was Variety or somebody came out today, where they're paying basically $50 a review for good reviews. So now it's completely suspect as to.
Great. Maybe
I honestly think at this point we should look at Letterboxd or something, a score for that.
Stick with
that's
IMDb
real people.
scores.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, like IMDb, Letterboxd, like user rated, you know?
Yeah, IMDb, again, that was like an 8.2, but then like the specific episode gave it a 7.6. I don't know. I just look at it and I just wish that there was a little bit more humor injected into this personally when I watched it. So I would say as far as like this specific episode goes, I'm going to lean cancel on this one, but I could be skewed to watch more of this if someone pointed out a specific episode and stuff. So with that being said, we do have a tie right now, which I kind of felt like was going to happen based on the way we were talking earlier. So Gordo's vote will come into play. So keep in mind, go to S1E1 Pod on our Instagram. You'll find out the results to that. With that being said, we're kind of leaving you guys in limbo on this one. So I apologize again. I remind you, go to S1E1 Pod on our Instagram. We'll have the final graphic up once we know his vote. That'll be up there. So I can't say congratulations or sorry one way or another to Abbott Elementary. But to all of you guys listening, thank you so much. We appreciate all the listens. Hit us up. We like knowing the shows that you want to cover, or you want us to cover, and we try to hit those as much as we can. I'm forgetting how to speak, so let's just wrap this up right now. Thanks everyone so much. We'll catch you next week. Thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best back that ass up.